Streaming live on WFLA Now. Powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. Here's JB Biunno.
If you're watching right now, you know exactly what I do. The story doesn't end here. So many questions remain on the deaths of Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. Most of all, what happened on the cross-country road trip that went so horribly wrong, and why are neither of them with us anymore? JB Biunno here with you live, everybody, on WFLA Now. Great to have you here on stream. Great to have Mahsa Saeidi here, 8 on your side investigator, joining us, a former New York City prosecutor. So many legal questions remain here in this story. So it's great to have Mahsa's brain available to us as a resource. And Mahsa, you just conducted an interview here. I want to get your perspective in just a second. We have to explain something to our audience at the very beginning here of our stream. And full disclosure, we just want to let you know why we're a little bit late today. Not only were we loading up a lot of your hashtag HeyJB video questions, Mahsa is smirking because quite literally...
Oh, you hear that? Do you guys hear that?
Is it coming through on the mics?
It's so loud.
A pipe burst here at WFLA today. A pipe. And there's water all over the place.
All over.
In fact, there was a conversation a short time ago that we weren't going to be able to stream with you here today because of a lot of water and a pipe that burst here at WFLA. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to talk with you, but if you hear what sounds like a construction site here behind us, that's because there is. That's because they're kind of working on fixing a burst pipe here at WFLA. So now that we have that out of the way, Mahsa, you just conducted an interview while the newsroom was a little bit more quiet. You had on an expert. I was listening a little bit to it, a forensics expert, as I understand it. What did you find out from the forensic expert, and what are you working on for tonight on WFLA News Channel 8?
So I spoke with a forensic expert. His name is Joseph Scott Morgan, and I had asked all of you guys if you had any questions for him regarding the remains that were found, the identification process. Will we know a cause of death? Will we know the manner of death? When will we know it? Just asking him various questions. We're going to have that story coming up for you at 6 o'clock tonight on Channel 8. But what we do know is that partial skeletal remains were discovered, a partial skull, according to sources telling NBC that yesterday or the day before. And I asked him, you know, is it possible that we're going to know a cause of death? And essentially he said it's going to be very difficult to determine the cause of death if there's not some significant trauma that has occurred on the body. Like, for example, this is just an example, a gunshot wound to the head. Again, we don't know about any weapon discovered, or we don't even know if this was suicide. The manner of death has not been confirmed by the ME's office here in Sarasota. But we asked him about that, how likely it was that we could know the cause of death for Brian Laundrie. I know many of you that are tuning in right now, you believe that this was, you know, suicide, but remains to be seen what we're going to find out there. I asked him how likely we would be to know the time or the date of death. He said that is going to be exceedingly difficult, but it's possible because of the attention on this case. The greatest experts in the country are working on this case right now. He said it's possible we'll know within a week of when he died, with a week time frame, give or take some days. So we talked about that. Yeah, I'll have the full interview coming up for you at 6 o'clock tonight, but I know a lot of you had other questions. I did ask him some of your questions. I'm going to tweet that out whenever JB and I wrap up here, but he did answer specific questions that you guys had outside of that as well.
Mahsa Saeidi, we're going to be breaking down everything that we know and everything that we really don't know, because we have so many. Overnight, when I put it out on Twitter last night, I put out the call for any video questions. We received more video questions in the last 12 hours than we ever have in this entire process. Wow. And I think that speaks to just the amount and the volume of questions that now remain. Now that we have the answer as to whether or not Brian Laundrie is alive, that spurs so many more questions. And we're going to be featuring your video questions in a short time. But we want to begin here. I spent the morning and last night and into this morning re-listening to a very key, important interview with attorney Stephen Bertolino with Marnie Hughes of News Nation last night. here's what we're going to do on stream. We're going to take your hashtag HeyJB questions and comments out of the Facebook Live, YouTube Live comment sections on Twitter. So if you want something addressed, you want to make an observation, you have a question, use hashtag HeyJB across any of those 3 platforms. Use hashtag HeyMahsa across either Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We can bring them into the conversation as we play back portions, not the entire thing, because it's extremely long.
20
but
minutes,
it's a 20-minute interview over Zoom. We're going to see Stephen Bertolino here in just a second, and we're going to play back the highlights of that. And as we watch this all together, let us know what you think. What do you think of Stephen Bertolino's responses? What do you think of just the back and forth conversation between News Nation's Marnie Hughes and attorney for the Laundrie family, Stephen Bertolino? This all happened yesterday after the FBI confirmed that the remains that were found Wednesday at Carlton Reserve were in fact those of Brian Laundrie. So what we're going to do is we're going to play back the interview. And we'll begin here with the very beginning. It'll cut through. I was able to, I did it myself this morning, trim out a couple of moments here that just were arbitrary, that really necessarily didn't tell us a whole lot. And if you want to watch the entire thing, of course, it's been on the internet for more than 12 hours now. Go watch it for yourself. It's on newsnationnow.com. But there's a beautiful shot of downtown Tampa. Let's bring in that interview, and we're going to pause it. We're going to play it back and pause it and have a conversation with you and feature your hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyMahsa questions and comments.
Have been identified. Tell us what you've learned.
Just a short while ago, I confirmed with Chris and Roberta Laundrie that representatives from the Northport Police Department visited their home and advised them that the remains were positively identified as those of Brian.
Have they been asked to identify the remains in person?
No, they have not. We had previously provided items for DNA testing and confirmation, and it's my understanding is that is what was used to identify the remains.
Under the circumstances, I think, first of all, this is difficult news for any parent to receive. How are your clients doing?
I've been using the word distraught for the last couple of days now, and they're extremely upset. And for some unknown reason, there are still people outside of their home, yelling and screaming and causing a ruckus, which, any parent that's grieving the loss of a child should not have to deal with that.
This is true, first and foremost, that there were demonstrators outside of the Laundrie house last night. After the news was delivered to the Laundrie family, and we had the video last night, the video showing the FBI or local law enforcement. Thank you. 2 Northport police officers going into the house to deliver this news, only there for a couple of minutes. Yeah. There were demonstrations that were outside of the home last night as Chris and Roberta Laundrie were in the home processing the news that they had, that the remains that were found at the Carlton Reserve were that of their son, Brian Laundrie.
Why did your clients lawyer up?
You used the term lawyer up. I've been a friend of Chris Laundrie for over 25 years. And when I got a phone call from Chris advising me that he was getting some inquiries from law enforcement, he asked me if I could assist him. And of course, I was more than glad to do so.
At any point in the last 5 weeks, have you spoken with Brian Laundrie?
Yes, I spoke to Brian Laundrie on September 12th and September 13th.
Before we go on to Marnie's next question here, let's take the first one from Twitter. It comes from D-Row, and it reads, hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyMahsa, again on Twitter. Has SB, Stephen Bertolino, broken attorney-client privilege by divulging the comments/context of some of the conversations on television? Hashtag Gabby Petito, hashtag Brian Laundrie. As we're going to play back more of this, and I think that this question will be, of course, there's more clarification here to this question as we hear more from Stephen Bertolino. But again, Mahsa, you're a former prosecutor. You've heard this entire interview so far. Or you've heard the entire interview as it, of course, was played out on News Nation last night. Any concerns with breaking attorney-client privilege here by Stephen Bertolino, the Laundrie family attorney?
So I actually had a chance to speak with Stephen Bertolino yesterday as well, and I asked him that very same question about his conversations with Brian, and he told me as well that he spoke with Brian on September 12th and September 13th, that he had not seen Brian in person. We know that he knew Brian as a little kid as he was growing up, but as far as attorney-client privilege, he would not tell me anything anything more about the conversation that he had with Brian. And there has been a trickle of information, almost an endless trickle of information from Stephen Bertolino. And every time that he does conduct an interview, he gives a little bit more to one reporter, talks about something else with a different reporter. I have listened and logged most of the interviews that he's had with reporters, and he hasn't stated anything that would make me think he broke. I mean, he hasn't said, like, did they know? What did they know?
Yeah, there weren't too many
what did they tell you
right.
on September 1st? So he has talked a lot, but there has been, nothing said about, Brian said this about the incident, about the event. So, and we found out that he does speak with the Laundries twice a day, that he's known Chris Laundrie for 25 years. So I would presume that Chris Laundrie knows that he's out there making these statements, and a lot of the statements that he has been making, he has been attempting to defend the Laundrie, saying, I told him not to talk to anyone. Sorry if you don't like it. Protesters, please. They just found out their son died. Get off their property.
On the protesters, really quickly, Kathy here saying, #HeyJB, the demonstrators need to get a heart. So unnecessary. The demonstrators are acting from a place where they're thinking about Gabby Petito's family. But again, they have been demonstrating and doing so loudly outside of the Laundrie family home without knowing all of the facts of the case. We just don't know what Chris and Roberta knew. Again, but let me just explain where this interview is about to go. And those who have seen it already know where it's about to go in the next several minutes. First and foremost, the number one question that I have is asked in this interview. The answer, you'll see for yourself. But also, too, there is a moment in this interview, and I think everybody who has seen it knows exactly what I'm talking about, where I'm just going to put it out there that Stephen Bertolino loses his cool. And let's continue playing it. We'll continue to look for your #HeyJB, #HeyMahsa comments. You can file them in here on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube as we continue to play the interview from last night on News Nation, Laundrie family attorney Stephen Bertolino.
And what can you share about that conversation?
Not much. Any conversation I had with Brian Laundrie is privileged. I can tell you that Chris and Roberta have been worried about Brian Laundrie since Brian went out for the hike on that Monday, and from there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of accusations, a lot of news outfits have proliferated that misinformation. And I firmly believe that's why these protesters are out there, because this has just become a circus, which there was no need for it to be that way.
Did you ever see Brian Laundrie in person when he returned to Florida?
I did not.
And when was the last time his parents saw him before he went hiking?
The morning he left for the hike.
Have you believed over the last few weeks that he was alive?
We were hopeful that he was alive. Because we had not heard from him and there was no sign of him after all of the search efforts that law enforcement had made. Obviously, each passing day and week, we understood that there might be a grim reality coming in the future. Those were confirmed today.
Did Brian's parents share with you, did he share a plan with them?
A plan for what?
A plan for what he was going to do.
His plan was to go out for a hike and absorb the fresh air, what I understand.
Was Brian in communication with his parents after he left the house on cell phone or in any other way?
No, he was not. I believe that was clarified, that Brian had left his cell phone at home.
Did Brian have any way to communicate?
And yet, excuse me, Monty, and yet the news outlets, indeed Fox News just yesterday, had an anchor and pundits on their air setting forth how the Laundrie parents and myself were communicating with burner phones with Brian over the last several weeks.
Well, I think there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions that everyone has. So my question to you is, have you communicated with Brian at any point after you spoke with him on the phone on the 12th and 13th?
No, I haven't.
Did you know where he was?
I knew that he went to the reserve.
Let's talk about the reserve. A lot of people can't wrap their minds around the fact that the reserve had been searched week after week. was reopened to the public, and then less than 24 hours, the parents went out there. What did they share with you about their reasoning for going out there and why they knew specifically where to go?
You know, Marnie, as I've stated several times yesterday and now throughout today, you know, it's not about knowing specifically where to go. The park was just recently opened. I believe it was Tuesday or Wednesday that the park was open. Chris and Roberta wanted to go in the park again to search for their son. Specifically where to go was start at the beginning. And as has been, how shall I say, confirmed, both with a news reporter and with the police department and the FBI being present, they started at the beginning of the preserve. It just so happened that that's where Brian was. So my thought would be anybody who's questioning that, it's not too bright.
Let's stop it right there for a second and provide some context, because we have spent, and I promised you that this would happen, we have spent a lot of time going through Eagle 8 HD, our news chopper, Eagle 8 HD, going through that footage to provide everybody with some more detail as to where the remains were found, in addition to the backpack and, of course, the other articles that we have referenced here quite a bit on stream. In reference to the entrance to Carlton Reserve across the bridge from Myakkahatchee Environmental Park. So let's show you that this is from photojournalist Jim Hockett. Let's show you now. That's the bridge. There's Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park. That is where this is the area the Ford Mustang convertible was discovered and cited for as being an abandoned vehicle. That was being Brian Laundrie's vehicle. There's the bridge into the Carlton Reserve. And then it's about 3/4 of a mile in is where all the focus was on Wednesday and on Thursday, where the remains themselves were found, Mahsa.
So if I can just say this, according to the attorney, if you choose to believe him, on September 17th, this exact location was revealed to law enforcement. He says that they were notified this is one of the trails, one of the spots that they should look at. And the fact that this was so close to where we know that Mustang was parked, we know this is an area that authorities searched. We also know from the FBI that this was an area that was submerged under water. These items, the remains, the items belonging to Brian, they were discovered in an area that was off the trail and that was submerged underwater. So I personally don't think, there's a lot of tough questions that you can ask that attorney, but all of the reporters and anchors that are asking, why was this found now? Why was this not found sooner? I think that is a question that you need to go and ask law enforcement officials. Why did they open up Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park when clearly the area had not been fully searched? I get it. The area was submerged. But once the water receded, why did you then not go back in with a live canine, with the canine that can detect human remains? So there's a lot of tough questions you can be asking this attorney. And I know some people think that, evidence was planted. We can discuss that later. But the remains were not planted. I think we're pretty safe to say that. And I think that is a question you need to be asking law enforcement, not Mr. Bertolino.
Let's just get to some of the feedback here. Again, use hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyMahsa across any of our social media platforms. We have this comment here from Keely. Hashtag HeyJB, I feel like he was extremely defensive in this interview. I feel like since he announced early on that it was a high possibility the remains were Brian's, that he had to know something. I'm not sure how I feel about Keely's. I think that when you see that the articles were found near the human remains, I think that there were a lot of folks, experts in various fields, that were saying that it was a strong possibility that the remains would be that of Brian Laundrie. But it's interesting from Keely's perspective, saying, thinking that Bertolino is saying, or in her words, extremely defensive in this interview. Let us know if you agree. You can use hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyMahsa. Just try to form a complete thought instead of just saying yes or no with your comment. Try to form a complete sentence, a complete thought, and we'll continue to look for more of your comments. Let's get back now to more of the News Nation interview. Marnie Hughes of News Nation interviewing Stephen Bertolino, the Laundrie family attorney.
Well, clarify that, because I think no one has the answers here. Certainly the public doesn't. You have more answers than most. We assume that the parents knew more than we do. So clarify what the public doesn't understand about what's going on.
What the public doesn't understand, I don't understand. You have a trailhead. The trailhead marks the beginning of a trail. You don't jump from the sky and land in the middle of the preserve. You start at the trailhead. That's where the parents started. The parents walked into the park from the entrance to the park or the trailhead. They went about a mile or so, and that's where they found the items and the remains. What is so difficult to understand about that?
Well, I think it's hard to grapple with the fact that the reserve had been searched so extensively by FBI professionals over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and they hadn't come across anything. And then all of a sudden, we have several items and human remains. I think that's what people aren't fully understanding, the timing of that.
So once again, I don't understand what the public doesn't understand. Everyone from the FBI to local enforcement to news reporters, to the Laundrie family, has confirmed that area of the park was underwater. I am told that it was waist deep at some times. So from 4 to 5 weeks ago being completely underwater, when the search teams went through there, what did they expect to find? Now that the water has receded, the woods off the trail are more accessible. It's not very difficult. Because it's very simple and the public doesn't understand simplicity or the truth, you want to make something of it. And when I say you, I don't mean you particular, I mean the public. Imagine what the public would be thinking if the police weren't there. Imagine what the public would be thinking if a lot of this wasn't caught on video. And still, with an independent reporter and a representative of law enforcement from a local agency, a representative from the FBI being present, and you still have these nonsensical people putting forth ideas that certain items were planted.
We'll stop it right there for a second. I just want to just take a moment here to identify Stephen Bertolino making a pretty valid point here. Can you imagine, it's a valid point. Can you imagine what the conversation online would have been like over that 48-hour period after the remains were discovered and after the articles were discovered at Carlton Reserve? Can you imagine what the conversation, Mahsa, would have been like?
Oh my gosh!
If there wasn't the images that would come from members of the press that were there,
they just walked up and found stuff, yeah.
Right, because at least we were able to see from those shots that law enforcement was there, that we saw things like them, carrying the silver dry bag. Can you just imagine if we just got wind of this, that it just spontaneously occurred and that there was no video evidence of it? It is a valid point here by Stephen Bertolino that gives us some insight as to what actually happened 3/4 of a mile into the Carlton Reserve.
And just, to clarify once again, Chris Laundrie found the dry bag, but it was law enforcement that found the backpack, and it was law enforcement that found the remains. But I get it. It is a huge coincidence. And that was the question that I asked Mr. Bertolino. I said, how did they know exactly where to go? Why did they think they would find something there? And he said to me what he said to Marnie. He said, they just started at the beginning. So it's just such a coincidence. The fact that, right when they got there, they were able to find the dry bag. But it also makes sense. Maybe he just parked the car. He didn't walk very far. I think if the remains did not belong to Brian Laundrie, I think if the parents discovered something that would suggest that he was completely innocent, then I think you could entertain more this conversation about was anything planted. But I think at this point that we know the remains were found right next to the stuff and that Brian Laundrie is dead, I personally don't understand the planting. Planting for what? I mean, he's dead. I just don't understand it. Maybe I'm missing something. I sometimes do.
Let's check in with our commenters. #HeyJB, #HeyMahsa. Let's take 3 here, and then we'll continue resuming. We'll play the of course, just not the entire thing. We're playing pockets of it. Then we're getting to the video question, because the video questions that have been submitted to the WFLA JB Facebook page, these help us now have those conversations as far as where this goes from here. I know you're asking, folks, what's next? When are we going to get answers? Cause of death on the skeletal remains that were found. We know now that, of course, it's Brian Laundrie. Dental records. We understand that was the matching process that took place. But when is the process going to yield any results as to the manner of death, the cause of death for Brian Laundrie? Was it a suicide? We're gonna get into that here. And but I want to highlight Glenn's question, because this is what we're getting to. This is what we're getting to, Glenn. #HJB, #Mahsa. My only question is why the Laundries wouldn't answer calls from the Petito family prior to her being reported missing. Stick around, Glenn. Let's get to the next one here from Taylor Frazier. #JB, #Mahsa. Just, I'm trying to find some comments that, and we'll look for them here. We strive for balance, but most of the comments have been very critical of Stephen Bertolino so far that we have seen on our live stream. But if there's anybody out there that wants to comment positively on his demeanor and the way that he is speaking here to News Nation's Marnie Hughes, let us know. But Taylor Frazier, #JB, #Mahsa, he isn't behaving like a professional attorney. It's obvious that in his temperament, he is allowing his emotions and connections to the family to get the best of him. And Mahsa, again, former prosecutor, Mahsa Saeidi here with his former prosecutor in New York City. It's keeping your emotions in check is something, of course, that is discussed in many different professions, not just being an attorney at law or not just being a reporter as far as, or a journalist. But this is someone, Bertolino says that he has had a connection multiple decades with the Laundrie family, knew or remembers Brian being an infant or a newborn. Yeah. He says this in the interview, so there's clearly, without question, he's known the family for some time, and there's clearly a connection here. And I don't think that Stephen Bertolino would shy away from the fact that, sure, this has been emotional for him. He says later in the interview that he shed a tear when he found out the news yesterday.
I mean, I think that, he said he's known Brian since he was a little kid, and he did say he cried. He said, "This is hitting me hard." He would get very angry at any question in any interview that suggested that somehow anything was planted, and just saying over and over again, now is not the time to talk about, the Gabby Petito case. Now's the time to let this family mourn. About his demeanor, he definitely had a fighting spirit to him when he was out there. He definitely vigorously defended the Laundries. The Laundries have gotten so much heat for not talking to the media, for not talking to law enforcement. He completely took that on, saying that was him saying not to do that. So I think he is definitely not just an attorney. He is friends. He's been talking with them twice a day for the past month. I will say the first question about not answering the phone calls of the Petito family, I get it. I mean, we all listen to that.
That question is going to be asked here soon. Lauren on Twitter, we were talking about it, Mahsa, #KGB, #Mahsa. I can definitely see why people think he might be defensive, but he could just be like that anyway. He's only ever communicated via text/press release before now, which we know all too well. But, Brian Enton of News Nation, I remember he was on our stream, I don't remember what day it was, but he was on a stream recently, and the word that he used to describe Stephen Bertolino, Mahsa, is feisty. That was the word that he used to describe Bertolino.
I had a very pleasant conversation with him yesterday.
There you go.
Are people going to get mad at me on Twitter?
No, no.
They probably will.
You had a back and forth cordial conversation with an attorney cordial. and it was part of an interview that aired on WFLA News Channel 8. Let's get to some more now of the press conference with, not the press conference, the News Nation interview last night on News Nation. Marnie Hughes talking to Laundrie family attorney Stephen Bertolino. There's a few more minutes left in this as far as the highlights. Then we move on to your video questions. Continue to file in your feedback here, what you think of this with #HeyJB, #HeyMahsa. Really quickly, Dave Anderson here on Twitter a short time ago, #HeyJB, #HeyMahsa. I think Stephen Bertolino is rightfully venting and demonstrating righteous indignation in response to the bizarre accusations and speculation against the Laundries. It's his job to defend his clients. So that's what he is doing here. And if he's a little feisty, he's a little emotional, that's his demeanor. We've seen a little bit of that come through even in text message form, but there's been now his character here is being put out on full display. And let me just add, I see your comments. It's very curious that just about every man in this story has a shaved head or is bald. We have seen pictures of Stephen Bertolino, but this is the first time that we're having him on video here on stream. And whether it's just everybody in this story seems to have very little hair on the top of their head. We do see those comments coming through.
You have a lot of hair. Can I make one quick comment? He was very upset that the protesters were outside of the home minutes after these parents found out their child was deceased. And, you know, as a parent, my heart breaks for any parent that loses their child. Certainly Gabby's parents. We've shed tears, you know, thinking about what happened to her. But he was very upset that as the parents learned that their child is dead, whatever you think of the child, that there were still protesters outside as they were processing that. I think that could explain some of the anger.
Chantel here, Rojas on Twitter, hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyMahsa. I honestly don't blame him for being so on edge. He's not a criminal defense attorney. This is probably all known to him. I think maybe she meant unknown, but I'm sure he's grieving this loss too. Not that it makes it right, but I can understand someone else should have stepped in for him. Again, let's continue playing the News Nation interview. Marnie Hughes talking to Laundrie family attorney Stephen Bertolino.
You've called that hogwash. You've called the suggestion that items were planted were hogwash. Why is that?
I'm sorry, we were speaking over one another. Can you repeat that?
Yes, of course. You have suggested that any claims that the Laundries planted items in the reserve is hogwash. Why?
Marnie, I thought I was very clear in just explaining to you why. If you've got the FBI, the local PD, an independent news reporter, all there at the same time seeing the same thing, you've got quote unquote surveillance of the Laundries 24/7 by protesters and people of the press. When did you think these items were planted? And do you really think the Laundries had skeletal remains of their son, you know, in a plastic bag and brought them to the preserve? Do you realize how ludicrous that is? How aggravating, how maddening it is to even hear those things? And the fact that it's being put out there by the press as well, that's where my level of frustration and anger is coming from. Maybe somebody with a platform should step up and say, hey, knock it off. This is just silly. So if I'm the only one who has to say that this is hogwash because I didn't want to say the word then I'm going to say it.
So that he shouldn't have done.
I'm sorry if John Q. Public doesn't get that.
So you want to, in general, all I will say is, in general, you don't want to. I don't really have a problem with a feisty interview. I'm a feisty gal myself.
You are. Mahsa is a little feisty, folks.
I'm feisty. I'm just as feisty as anyone on the planet. So I don't mind that. I don't mind.
Is it the New Yorker in you, Mahsa? Stephen Bertolino of East Islip, New York?
That's true. Yeah, I don't know, but so I don't mind the feistiness, but you probably should not use bad words. That is like crossing a line. He
was on national television.
I will say Northport PD has said to our Brian Enton that this was not planted, 100% not planted. So
again, the points are valid. I talked about it yesterday on stream. I talked about it yesterday on Instagram. There's the conspiracy theories went into overdrive with the planting of evidence. Listen,
we understand that
if it was just
so quickly, yeah.
Mahsa, if it was just the dry bag or just the backpack or one stray item, but the fact that skeletal remains, including a skull, the fact that it was all found within a relative short distance of each other, and then of course the dental records come back and it's confirmed to be Brian Laundrie. Now, again, the demeanor here is in question. Using the words that he did, I think everyone knows the word that he used twice there on national television, on News Nation. However, he's calling out the conspiracy theorists out there. And we have had conversations on this stream on WFLA Now talking about the conspiracy theorists just going way over the top in certain respects as far as this case, and trying to stay, everyone knows what I'm about to say, rooted in reality. And we've been preaching that from the very beginning, and Stephen Bertolino is a little bit frustrated by some of what has been said on social media. We're going to talk more about this in a moment, because the feistiness doesn't end here. There's more feistiness in this interview. However, there's a lot of folks online saying right now that they understand his emotional response to this line of questioning, even though this line of questioning is in our estimate, from Marnie Hughes, these are the questions. This is what you would ask Stephen Bertolino if you had him for 20 minutes, and she did. She
did a great job. She did a phenomenal job. Again, all I would say is I think some of the questions about why this wasn't found sooner should be directed at law enforcement, but I do think she did a phenomenal job.
Let's see here we'll see if we can take one. How about Saffron Keys on Twitter? Hashtag Hey Mahsa at WFLA. You mentioned listening to all his interviews, which surprised he's so chatty.
I said most.
Okay.
I said I logged most, but yeah. But
logged is TV speak for transcribing, and yep. And B, he mentioned in one interview how Brian was grieving.
Gosh, I don't remember that.
I don't remember that particular note, but I'm not saying that isn't true.
Brian was grieving?
Let's Saffron, appreciate the comment. Let's continue to play back now portions of the interview. We're almost through. We just got another few minutes here. And again, the number one question that I want answered is coming up here in this News Nation interview.
Let me ask you, Mr. Bertolino, from the very beginning, the public has been watching this case unfold, starting with Gabby's disappearance. I think everyone understands your client's right to stay silent, to not talk. That silence does not presume guilt. However, in the court of public opinion, the last few weeks have been difficult. Legally, I understand that argument, but ethically, did they ever consider reaching out to the Petitos, reaching out to law enforcement in help finding Gabby?
Unfortunately, Marnie, I can't have that conversation with you at this time.
Why is that?
I just can't. It's not the appropriate time to have that conversation.
But it's an ethical conversation, not just for the parents of Brian, but for you as an attorney. At any point when they were searching for Gabby, did you feel the need, compelled to help?
I can tell you that at this moment in time, Chris and Roberta Laundrie just learned that their son's remains were identified. He is now no longer with them. At some point in time in the future, there may be more information as what I felt, what the Laundries felt, what we, quote, ethically, thought about the case. Now is not the time to do that. You've asked me the question 2 or 3 times. And I'm going to respectfully tell you again, it's not the time to discuss that.
That's the question to me.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you. Yeah, go ahead.
Mahsa, again, and the question for clarification purposes is, Brian Laundrie returns in Gabby's van from the cross-country trip, September 1st, returns home to Northport, Florida. Joe Petito, Nicole Schmidt, Gabby's mother and father, who I've had conversations with, they said that they were trying so desperately to just communicate they're trying to get a hold of Brian. They were trying to get a hold of Brian's parents, Chris and Roberta. They were trying so desperately just for someone to pick up the phone. They would have been elated by just seeing the text message bubble, the ... somebody respond to them. And it was non-existent as far as the responses from the Laundrie family to the Petito and Schmidt families. And there's been so much frustration, mounting frustration, because optics-wise, that doesn't look good in the court of public opinion, the court of social media. And that question being asked point blank multiple times. I'm glad to see Marnie really stay on that question, repeatedly ask it. Why weren't those calls returned? Why didn't they pick up the phone and talk to the other family? Why didn't they talk to the Petitos and Schmidts? And Stephen Bertolino says that now isn't the time to have that conversation.
And I would say that I don't know when would be a good time to have that conversation. I just want to preface this from saying when I watched the 60 Minutes Australia interview, when Nicole Schmidt explained how she's like searching for her daughter. Then she finds out that Brian's back, that he has her van, and then she tries to talk with him, and they got a lawyer, and she talked about like how her stomach sank or something like that. It hit me. Like I felt the poor emotions of this woman. So I totally get it. That being said, I didn't ask him that question. And the reason I didn't ask him that question is like, let's follow through. Let's follow through. So what could they say? Oh, her body is here? Didn't Brian just incriminate himself, and doesn't he have a right against self-incrimination?
Right, you're thinking about
what information can you give? You can't. It's horrific, the fact what happened to the Petito family, how they were just left in the dark. Again, how they're told, like, here's my attorney information. I get it. But I'm saying, when you ask Stephen Bertolino, why did they do that? Why didn't they tell him where Gabby was? Well, Gabby was dead from manual strangulation and throttling out in Wyoming. What are you going to say? She's in Wyoming. You know, well, what are you going to say that is not going to incriminate him? I will say the one thing that that was said by Stephen Bertolino in these interviews, he said that Brian was very upset when he left on September 13th. He actually said that the painful saga started on September 13th. And we know the painful saga started way before that for the Petito family. So that was just something that struck me as well.
So you're answering it from a legal perspective.
What are people saying? Are they very upset at my answer?
We'll get to some comments here in just a second. But, folks, what do you think of, just let us know what you think of this portion of the conversation.
What could they have said without incriminating potentially Brian? Now, Brian has been named as a sole person of interest and the murder of Gabby Petito by the FBI. Again, we don't have any other information other than that. And
you're
no way
answering this question with the legal section of your brain.
What could he say? What could they say?
I'm trying to get this question answered from a human being standpoint, from just having a heart. You've got your future in-laws trying to find their daughter, and you're trying to figure out where she is. And the best people equipped to answer that question as to where Gabby is won't even respond or take your phone call or your text message. I
understand, yeah.
So I think that this is interesting. You're thinking about it from a legal perspective. I'm thinking about it from a have a heart perspective. For Stephen Bertolino, he's thinking about it from a clientele perspective. Let me. The one question, Marnie did a phenomenal job. She did. But let me just. This would have been the final question that I would have asked in this thread to Stephen Bertolino, and I would have asked this: Stephen, did you advise your clients, Chris, Roberta, and Brian Laundrie, to not respond to the Petitos and the Schmitz? Was it your guidance? Was it your advice? Was it your legal expertise to not communicate with the other family? That's what I would like to know.
I can tell you he answered that for me. I cannot pull up my log right now, but essentially he said, I told them not to talk to anybody. There was no reason to talk to anybody, and the public can be as mad about it as they want. That's essentially what he said.
Then there you go.
So he told them.
So that they were thinking about it legally. So Chris and Roberta Laundrie are dealing with something where they are feeling they are fearing of legal ramifications, and they were advised
for their son, right?
Right, and they are not answering. They are not answering the other family on the guidance of the man in the center of your screen.
That's right. That's accurate.
So that's the legal right thing to do. But is it just the right? Just scratch out the word legal. Is it the right thing to do?
So I do believe in our criminal justice system. Yes. I do believe in our Constitution.
You have a right to remain silent.
I believe in our Constitution, and this is a right that you have. And that's it. That's all I will say about that.
I'd like to think that our viewers have a heart.
I have a heart too. I told you my heart fell apart.
You are one of the most heartfelt people in this entire newsroom.
You're so sweet. I love
you. You're so. This is why Mahsa's prior experience as a former New York City prosecutor is so valuable, because she's providing some legal insight here. Meanwhile, I'm just thinking about a family and parents, and also the stepfather and stepmother, Tara and Jim as well, thinking about the 4 co-parenting unit, just desperate for answers and not being able to get them from any of the Laundries just because Stephen Bertolino said you probably shouldn't. So again, that's just my 2 cents on it. Let's get to some of the questions and comments. that that are coming in here in the Facebook Live comment section, and yeah, as there's some very loud ones, some very loud ones. Raylene Ledger, hashtag HJB. Every action of theirs is all morally and ethically inhumane. And as I know that this comment is loud and prevalent and very common in our social media comment section, but let me also just remind you, as much as I would like some answers here, and I think we all want the answer to that question in particular, we don't know the facts, we don't know what actually happened, and we're going to have a video question about this later, but it's important to reserve a portion of judgment here for when we do know the facts. Like, right, we're all, there's so much unknown, so much being assumed, so many jumps to conclusions by so many out there. And it's important to also just remember that we don't know the truth. We don't know what Chris and Roberta Laundrie knew, but yes, the optics are extremely poor that they didn't take that phone call. One or two more. Kenzie Rader is, yeah,
I'm also getting questions trying to read these, but sorry guys, I can't answer to your questions because JB's doing it.
No, you can read it aloud.
Okay, let me.
If it has a hashtag,
it doesn't have a hashtag. Stop DMing me.
But then you can't. So then you can't say the name. That's our system.
I can't say the name. Okay.
So the system is that you can read the question. You just can't talk about who sent it to you because we don't want to put anyone's name on blast here. We use the hashtag system as a form of you acknowledging that you would like for us to mention your name and your comment here. So what is the question, Mahsa?
It said, you just shared, Stephen Bertolino said the saga for the Laundries begins on September 13th. It's so suspicious to me that if that's so traumatic for them, how did they get the date he went missing wrong? And then this person also said, has Brian Laundrie's parents ever explained through their lawyer why they got the original date when he went missing wrong? And yeah, I think it would say, didn't they say something in sum and substance too? There's just a lot going on, the recollection of events, they got that date wrong. But we do know, on September 13th when he went missing, Chris went out on September 13th. Chris and Roberta went out on September 14th to search for him 4 to 5 hours at the trails. And on September 15th, they went and got the Mustang. I don't know if I answered her question.
No, I think that's yep.
I don't know how you read questions. You're so good, JB. I can't do it. Well, I can't read and talk at the same time.
Well, I'm good at the things I'm good at, and you're a brilliant legal mind. So that's
I said nobody ever, but thank you.
No, folks, Mahsa's selling herself short. Just take a look at the body of work that is Mahsa Saeidi's career. Angela, I like this comment. As far as this question, let's just take a couple more, then we'll play out the remainder of the interview uninterrupted, and then we'll get to video questions. Joya Young, did they lawyer up? The term gets used a lot. Lawyer up before police started investigating. Marnie asked it actually in that way. Did they lawyer? But this is as we talked about on so many streams prior to this one, Stephen Bertolino is the longtime family associate and family legal aid for the Laundries. So this isn't the first time that they've known each other for so many years. So you can't say that they lawyered up. Did they make that phone call to get to get legal advice? Sure, but at the same time, let's not forget that they've had a pre-existing relationship for a very long time. Lisa Marie on Twitter. It's a long one, hashtag HJB, hashtag Mahsa. I can understand Bertolino being so upset. He knew Brian since he was a child and obviously has personal feelings. Plus, some of these conspiracy theories are over the top. I agree with Mahsa. I feel for all involved and think Mahsa is on point.
Wow.
See?
Okay. Just to the other person right before, we know September 12th he was involved because he did talk with Brian on September 12th. He could have been involved before then. We know the missing person report was filed on September 11th. Just to answer that other question.
And Angela, with this one, this is just a great question. Angela Lopez, hashtag HJB, can anyone get away with a crime by pleading the fifth? And the answer to this question in this country is yeah. But here's how and Mahsa is more equipped to answer this question than I am. But in a particular case where there is virtually no evidence to suggest that somebody did a crime and that person knows that they did the crime, and they don't incriminate themselves because they execute their constitutional right to remain silent, then there you go. There's no evidence to implicate them in a crime. There's no charges filed, no arrest ever made, and That's why evidence is king in any investigation that goes on here in the United States. Mahsa, do you have anything to add on Angela before we wrap up this portion of the stream?
I mean, all I will say is if law enforcement doesn't have a lot to go on, and then you start talking to them, and then you say something, and then they can go and say, but wait, you weren't there that night, and then they go to that location. I mean, they can, yeah, it definitely helps law enforcement if you talk. And so, yes, if you stay silent, yes, you could potentially get away with a crime. What? Did my face just pop in?
Yeah, just making sure that you're...
Oh, you did that. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, you know,
I keep moving.
care about you, Mahsa. Mahsa and I
care about you. We love each other. Some people, you know...
Yeah, that's the best part about this, is that Mahsa and I have... Mahsa, how would you put it into words?
I think we love each other. We always have from the beginning. That's how I would say it for the past 3 years. And sometimes my face looks mean when I'm on here, and people are like, wow, you're so mean.
She's not.
Well, sometimes
Mahsa's
my
the
face
farthest
is like,
thing from. When I say that Mahsa has a heart, it's...
JB, you have a heart. Okay, I think people are done with us talking about how much we love each other.
It's Mahsa and I have a great relationship. Let's get to, all right, let's continue playing the remainder of News Nation Now's Marnie Hughes. There's 3 minutes left. Let's play just the final 3 minutes, and then we'll take the rest of your questions and comments on the interview portion. And then I know that you've been waiting patiently. What is next? When are we going to get answers? When are we going to get the cause of death for Brian Laundrie? We're getting into all that, but this is very important. We're finally hearing from Stephen Bertolino, and let's continue to play that interview from last night.
Have the Laundries reached out to the Petito family at all, and has the Petito family reached out to them in recent days?
The Laundrie family has not reached out to the Petitos, and to my knowledge, the Petitos have not reached out to the Laundries.
What are the Laundries' plans now?
At the moment, they're going to grieve their son.
And then what?
Marnie, I don't mean to be rude, and I know you have a job to do. They were just told less than a half hour ago that their son is deceased. Do you think that they really have thoughts on anything other than that their son is no longer with them?
No, and I respect their privacy, and I can't begin to imagine the pain that they're going through. I just know that so many of us have questions about what has happened, not just to Gabby, but to Brian. The nation has been watching this search for him, what turned into a manhunt across the country. And so we are curious. We want answers. You're the closest to the family, and I want to know how they're doing. I want to know what their plans are.
Marnie, I don't have any information on the plans that the Laundries have. And I want to tell you, because I've got to stop myself, I'm taking some of my anger and frustration out on you. As you may know, I knew Brian Laundrie since he was an infant, since he was a small child. You know, this is hard. I've shed a tear or two today as well. I've shared that with the Laundries. The fact that the public is continuing this nonsensical, we're hiding him in the beginning, we've fed him food, we've communicated with him, and every platform, because you hear that if you have a platform, you should use it for the good. You respect that they have the right to remain silent, but there are people in your position, maybe not you, but in your position, that never once pushed back on these so-called experts and pundits who did nothing but say, this is immoral, this is unethical. Somewhere along the line, somebody with a platform, someone in your position should have said, hey, you know what? Back off. This is America, and in our system of justice, they have the right to remain silent. So I'm kind of a little perturbed that now I have to go back and explain how we didn't plant remains and personal items in a preserve when the upper echelons of law enforcement is telling everyone this is legit by their actions, by their words, and yet we have to now go back and somehow educate John Q. public? And you guys perpetrate this. You put it forth and you
Well, I'm going to stop you right there. I have said a number of times that the Laundrie parents have every right to remain silent, whether the public agrees with that right or not. But our search is for answers, and that is where it will continue to lie. Answers not only in what happened to your client, Brian Laundrie, and what happens with his parents moving forward, but also what happened to Gabby. And there are many who are concerned that we may never know what happened in this case, given what has transpired today.
As I've said now for probably the 4th or 5th time, today is not the day to discuss that.
I'll go first. Stephen Bertolino, his words were, somebody with a platform should say, back off. Someone should remind Stephen Bertolino that while you do have the constitutional right to remain silent in this country, you also have the constitutional right to speak your mind. And Marnie put it beautifully as far as how she responded in that moment, saying it's all about seeking answers.
She's so good.
And
yeah,
we have so many times on this stream talked about how the demonstrations that have occurred, the protests, everything that has been, there's been just some actions that have gone over the top. And we, of course, have very much been very cognizant of that and talked about how there is a certain level that you can go to, but there's a line that you can cross before it just gets potentially dangerous for others without knowing, you don't know the facts of the entire case. So you have to keep things in perspective. That's what we do here in WFLA Now as far as keeping things rooted in reality, having a conversation with you, clearing up some of the misinformation that is out there. But for for Steve Bertolino to say somebody with a platform should say back off, that's your job. Steve, that's your job to say back off. And I don't remember you using the words back off in a text to any of the reporters saying back off my clients. I think that would have been an interesting sort of conversation to have at the time. But people wanting the truth and the people that are out there that watch this stream and other media coverage that just want answers, they're just executing their constitutional right to speak their mind. And freedom of speech, freedom of expression, these are freedoms in this country that are the same as the freedom that you have to remain silent. So for him to come down on people when his clients are executing the same U.S. constitutional rights that others in this country here are executing by expressing themselves on this news story, and of course we are very unique here on WFLA Now as far as featuring what people have to say. There's certainly going to be criticism from the way that he put that, because you have the right in this country to express yourselves, and we're all just trying to find out exactly what happened. We're just trying to find out the truth.
All I will say is some of the questions that he's getting, again, I've made this point, I'll go very fast, but some of the questions about why the remains were not found sooner based on everything we know, which is one, on September 13th, Stephen Bertolino told the FBI Brian Laundrie never came back after he went for a hike on the Carlton Reserve. To September 17th, again, attributing all this to the attorney, he said that the family identified exactly where he could be, including that area. The fact that, law enforcement was out there, they searched it, they didn't find it. The fact that law enforcement opened up that park without doing a search again with the cadaver dog when the water had receded. Based on those facts, I see why he gets frustrated when people ask certain questions. But while I have said that, I will also say I, as a journalist, took something away from watching Marnie's interview and Tom Yamas's interview. Sometimes I think the fact that I'm an attorney actually harms me because I don't ask questions that I know they can't answer. I love that they just asked everything. Mm-hmm. So I was telling you there's all these questions I didn't ask. But yeah, I get some of his frustration regarding the planting, given now that we know he's dead, given what the police have said, given the fact that cameras were there, and the questioning about why remains weren't found sooner. If that made sense. That makes sense?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Farah, #HeyJB, #HeyMahsa. Actions have consequences. Theirs have led to the public's lack of sympathy for them. Farah, I'm going to take your comment and just kind of add to it. Actions have consequences. And in this case, you could make the argument, and I think commenters would make the argument, that inactions have consequences. Doing nothing has its own consequences. And the fact that the Laundrie family and Stephen Bertolino continuously refuses to answer the question of why the family didn't return Nicole and Joe's Gabby's parents' phone calls and text messages. There's balance here. When you reserve your right to remain silent, maybe in the court of law there's very little that can be done, but in the court of public opinion, there's going to be, of course, opinions formed based on your inactions or your execution of your American right to remain silent. Marty Gonzalez, #KJB, rooted in reality is your phrase. Literally, as I was typing it, you just said it, and your entire coverage has reminded us of everything he contradicted. That's just the opinion of one of our commenters, Marty, here. Let's get to a question from Bellavita47. Let's go to Twitter. Let's hop over to Twitter.
Okay.
#KJB. My question is for #HeyMahsa. As a lawyer, what do you think about the advice the parents took from their attorney regarding staying 100% silent? Many took the complete silence regarding their missing son as they're helping / knowing that he was okay. This is Bella Vita on Twitter. A big round of applause, just because your question here is very timely as far as the conversation that we're having here. So, Mahsa, how would you? I'm going to put you up solo here. How would you answer this from Bella Vita?
So she's asking for my personal opinion. So
I think she's asking for your opinion based on your expertise as an attorney.
Okay, so I can tell you that most defense attorneys would say, do not go out there making endless statements to the media. You obviously have a right against self-incrimination. As far as telling them not to say anything to law enforcement, not to say anything to the media, I think other defense attorneys would have made that call as well, but he's also been criticized for telling them to do that. Some people arguing that it would have been good if they came out and made some sort of statement, shown publicly that they were impacted by the loss of Gabby Petito. So could they have had a news conference or a statement that they made talking about Gabby as a person? Sure, they could have. Some people think that would have been a good idea, but many defense attorneys would tell you in a situation where there's potential criminal liability to stay silent. But as far as, that's all I can say about that. They had two choices, and yeah.
Big shout out to our digital content producer behind the scenes, Heather Monahan, who's
incredible,
who's helping us out.
Ever.
Yeah,
Thank
we have a great team here at WFLA, and she followed up on that grieving comment that we had, and I don't remember who the comment came from earlier.
Texted it to me too.
Yeah, so it was an interview with ABC7 in New York City, and said this was tragic that the two families were grieving.
Yeah.
That the two families were grieving is the exact quote there.
What day was that?
And
September 14th.
And that he also apologized in that interview for being aggressive in other interviews, saying that he has been upset, angry, doesn't feel that Chris and Roberta have been given a fair shake. So big thanks to because ABC7, that's a different media organization that's not affiliated with WFLA, that's not affiliated with Nexstar, our parent company. So big shout out to Heather for just finding that from the ABC interview in New York City. Okay, so here's what we're going to do on WFLA Now. There's so many conversations to be had. You see it across the bottom of your screen. Questions remain in the deaths of Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. What we're going to do now is talk about where this goes forward, how this goes forward, by taking your video questions, video questions, and your #HeyJB, #HeyMahsa written questions across Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Your questions, this is interactive journalism. This is what it is. Your questions, of course, allow us to now discuss this news story and where it goes going forward. There's so many questions that remain, and who better to pose those questions than you, wherever you're watching from. And we have an international audience and people who've been following this story from around the world. Hello to everybody in the UK, Australia, some of the countries that I know have been following this quite a bit. And what we'll do is we'll start to take your video questions now. But at the same time, we're going to go back and forth between the written ones that are coming in live. We can't feature your video questions. Let me talk about the video questions just for a second, because it's very important. You can send them into the WFLA JB Facebook page, and when you do send them in, we'll feature them in the next stream. We can't bring them up live here. They have to go through a vetting process. We, of course, make sure that they are appropriate, that you're not, that they have to pass a certain amount of criteria for it to be on WFLA Now. And there were questions that came in that were just not rooted in reality. There were many video questions and that were coming in that were just, I think Stephen Bertolino, let's just say, wouldn't approve, and nor do we. We don't approve of just some of the baseless accusations that are so, not even conspiracy theories, just saying this happened, and saying that X, Y, and Z happened when they didn't happen. So we can only. There's a process that we go through as far as putting through these video questions, but I will say this: we've never received so many video questions on WFLA Now. Never had this many come in to one of our streams. So we have a lot to get to, and let's start with this first one here. This first one coming in from, and a few of them are coming in from other countries. So this first one is coming in from Amy, who again sent this into the WFLA JB Facebook page.
Hey JB, it's Amy in Sebastian, Florida. I was just curious, isn't it too soon for dental records, or did the FBI push it through? It just seems as though they had an ID awfully soon.
Amy, it's a good place to start, because now we're getting back to the developments of the past 24 hours. The dental remains were the primary means of identifying the remains that were found at Carlton Reserve and determining that they were Brian Laundrie. Mahsa, you've been doing interviews about this. Is that unorthodox to you? Because I think that there was a wide assumption amongst experts in the field of forensics that believed that DNA was going to be the initial means, and then something like dental would then come through to follow up and make sure that, and just putting a knot or a bow on it, so to speak, as far as the forensic identification of the remains.
So we know a portion of the skull was found. We know, according to the FBI release, that a comparison of dental records confirmed that the human remains did belong to Brian Laundrie. This did happen very quickly. Is that normal? Some experts have said that typically it could take a lot longer. So you would have to find out, who is this person's dentist? Did they go recently? Let's get those records. But we know that DNA was collected beforehand. So this is something that they had been expecting, potentially, that he could end up deceased, that they would have to identify him. So it definitely appears to experts that I've spoken to that they had obtained those dental records beforehand, because again, this was very quick. Very quick. So quick that I talked about it yesterday. I was wrapping, I was going home. I was ready to go home. Last night. It
was widely reported that, I know, Mahsa, that it caught you off guard. It caught all of us off guard. That was very quick as far as the dental, but listen, did it get to Amy's question? Did it get expedited? Absolutely. I have a friend that works in federal government, that works with federal investigations, that I was texting last night, and she informed me that there's just countless backlogs with something like that. But when it's as high profile as this, you jump to the top of the line. You get that information back pretty quickly. All of the experts are at your disposal. All the laboratory work is at your disposal. You can get it back faster than you would in a normal case. And let's just be clear, as far as the level of attention this has received, this is anything but normal circumstances. As promised, let's get to the next written comment here. It comes from Anthony Salamone on YouTube. Hello to our YouTube audience. Hope everyone's, how many we have on YouTube at the moment? 32,000. Hello to the 32,508 people that are joining us on YouTube. Hashtag KJB has, from Anthony, has Gabby's family spoken out about his death? There was a statement that was put out that said that the family was going to, do you have it there, Mahsa?
Quote, Gabby's family is not doing interviews or making a statement at this time. They are grieving the loss of their beautiful daughter. Gabby's family will make a statement at the appropriate time and when they are emotionally ready.
I was texting with Nicole last night, and it was, of course, she basically confirmed that they are working on putting out a statement of some kind, and that would be available when the time was right. They are going through a process right now, of course, as far as processing this news, as all of us. But I can speak from getting to know the family a little bit, that one thing that they have told me is that with anything going on with Brian Laundrie, they don't get a heads up. They don't get
really?
this.
Okay.
They don't get information ahead of time as far as Brian Laundrie. And I don't know what happened in the last that could have changed in the last 36 hours. But there was this notion out there that Gabby's family, that Joe and Jim and Nicole and Tara were getting updates from the FBI that when something would be found or this would happen, that they were getting updates routinely. From that was not the case. They were fine. That's one of the reasons why they found our streams. And Nicole could be watching right now. She was watching last night. But one of the reasons why she found our streams was because when you search on Google and you look for Gabby Petito, Brian Laundrie coverage, ours is pretty prominent. It does show up, and we were talking about what we know and what we don't know, and in large in part, Gabby Petito's family was very much in the dark throughout this process. They were getting more information about what was going on in Wyoming, what was going on with the discovery of the body, and of course, before the world knew that it was manual strangulation and throttling as Gabby Petito's cause of death, they knew that. They were given it in advance, heads up. So they're not privy to, at least the last time I spoke to them about this matter, they're not privy to any special insider access information from the FBI that they are also too just trying to get information from news sources such as ours. Anthony, thanks a lot. Hello again to everybody joining us on YouTube. Let's get to the next video question, and we'll bring it in. I think this next one comes in from a user, a viewer on WFLA Now from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Old television market.
That's right.
I was there for 4 years.
Mahsa, formerly of Las Vegas.
Hey JB, my name is Leia Alvarez. I'm from Las Vegas. I had a two-part question theory. Is it possible that you think he took his own life? That's why they found partial skull remains. And if so, do you think he wrote a confession in the notebook and that will ever...
Sometimes the questions kind of cut off abruptly. I don't know if that's a Facebook thing, but that one kind of cut up abruptly. But what we're being asked here is suicide. The chances of Brian Laundrie's death being a suicide.
It could be a suicide, it could be a homicide, it could be unknown, it could be natural causes, or an accident. And no, we don't know. We don't know yet.
We don't know yet. Is suicide possible? Absolutely, it's possible. Yeah. But so are the other scenarios, that the other causes of death that Mahsa just outlined for us. But Mahsa, one more time, there are people that weren't here at the very beginning of the stream. Kind of give us a 60-second recap on the interview that you just did and the interview that's going to be airing at some point on WFLA News Channel 8. It was an interview with someone who has some expertise as far as dealing with skeletal remains specifically, right? Yeah,
Joe Scott Morgan, a forensic expert. The interview is my story is going to air at on Channel 8 at 6 o'clock tonight. And basically, we asked him, will we know the time of death, or the date of, not time of death, forgive me, when we know the date of death, when we have partial skeletal remains found. He said it's going to be very difficult, but because there's so much attention and the biggest experts on this case, it's possible we'll know the date of death within a week, possibly, but he said it's going to be very difficult. I asked about a cause of death. Will we know a cause of death? And he said, unless there's some very clear trauma, for example, again, like a gunshot wound, no indication at all that a weapon was involved here. But for example, a gunshot wound to the head, you could possibly still see, evidence of that. So he said it's going to be very difficult to know the cause of death. And what else did you want to know, JB?
Let's throw up the comment here. Or no, it was just on the skeletal remains. Yeah, when we could find out. And is there anything in skeletal remains, Mahsa, that could determine whether or not it was a suicide?
Oh, gosh. He did go into how if you wanted to determine that somebody had been, strangled, that you would need the tissue because he said the bone that breaks, it's too small and it would have been carried away by animals. So
you'll see everybody tonight on WFLA.com, on the WFLA Mahsa, after your story airs, it'll be available to our international audience as well.
Yeah. So it'll be very difficult. It'll be very difficult.
And Mahsa, I know you have to get to work on that report.
I do at some point. It's true.
Can we keep you till 2:30?
Sure.
All right. We're going to try to go as rapid fire now through. I know that I am long-winded. Mahsa can be long-winded. We'll try to go as rapid fire through these questions and comments as possible. Fast. Michelle Bialik on YouTube. Again, hello to our YouTube audience. #KJB. Will we find out more information from the coroner on Gabby's death? more details that they weren't able to release before. Teton County Coroner Dr. Brent Blue, formerly Mahsa, are we going to find any more from Wyoming? I mean, as I understand it, that's done. That's done. We're not going to.
Well, so yeah, I just made a note. Thank you for that. To reach out to Dr. Brent Blue to see if we can get anything more. They were not. They said per Wyoming state law that they never have to release the full autopsy report.
That's in the hands of the FBI. Right?
Yeah, it's in the hands of, well, yeah, so in Wyoming, this occurred in Wyoming. They never have to release it no matter who the victim is. That is not information that goes out to the public. Now, if there would have been charges filed against the suspect, once those charges were filed, certain documents would have to be filed, which would give us access, you know, to the information they had. That was one way we could get this, but now the only person of interest in Gabby Petito's murder is now deceased. So I don't know if that's going to happen. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that question. I'm not sure.
I know that Dr. Brent Blue is resigning and is in the process of resigning from his post. That's something that, of course, gained a lot of social media traction as well.
He was going to stay on as the coroner. He was resigning from the hospital that he worked at.
Oh, that's right. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
The computer usage. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
And again, it's just
a lot of information, a lot of details. I gotcha.
No, I appreciate the clarification there. Let's get to the next video comment. And again, we have a long queue of video comments because we've never received this many video comments before. This next one, it comes in. Let's go down the list. And next one comes in from Kim. Let's get to Kim's video question that she submitted to the WFLA JB Facebook page.
Hey JB, it's Kim from upstate New York. I want to send my condolences to the Petito and Schmidt family as well as the Laundrie family. I think it's important to limit our judgments when we do not have evidence to the contrary. I also want to thank you for reporting this case with honesty, integrity, and sensitivity.
Reserving judgment isn't a strong quality as far as social media goes. Social media is the arena for judgment.
Twitter is so mean.
Twitter can be mean.
I think it just is mean.
Some other channels, and I won't mention them by name here, they can get mean. You guys know the ones I'm talking about. I talk about the 7 that I try to stay connected with. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Discord, and Reddit. And some are going to be...
I've never heard of Discord. I'm so old.
You need to get on Discord.
No, thank you.
I think that the Discord community would love to have aid on your side investigator Mahsa Saeidi. I can speak very fondly of Discord. Just another thing to check, and I don't want to do it. I've already been online way too long. But thank you. Maybe we'll talk about it. I think that there are some Mahsa Saeidi fans on Discord, to say the least. But reserving judgment, and it's such a responsible comment from Kim because it's easy to throw judgment out there to the wind, to social media. It's easy to always speak your mind. It's easy to execute your constitutional right for freedom of speech and freedom of expression and speaking your mind in a place where, let's be real, 50 years ago, unless you had a microphone and a news camera, you didn't have the ability to access a whole lot of people unless it was in print journalism or it was over the radio airwaves. Now, one tweet can be seen by millions in seconds, and do get seen by millions in seconds. So we are in the era, the generation of real-time judgments being passed on social media. But Kim bringing us back down to earth. Kim, thanks, thank you from us, thank you, because it aids us in being able to have the conversation that reserve judgment in certain respects when you have the full story. And she was passing along her condolences, not just to the Petito family, not just to the Schmidt family, but also to the Laundrie family, who, again, found out yesterday, Chris and Roberta Laundrie found out that they lost their 23-year-old son. Let's get to Stacy Nicole Smith, #HJB, #HeyMahsa. Wouldn't there be a way to pull Tide history information for the area where remains were found? Also, why didn't Chris Laundrie pick up the evidence with a stick versus touching? Can we start with this last one?
Yeah, I don't understand the first part.
No. Well, I'll explain the first one.
Okay.
I want you to focus on the second one, Mahsa.
Okay, thank you.
Because Chris Laundrie comes across the silver dry bag in the reserve and picks it up and there's been a lot of criticism of him picking it up. I was talking about how it's really human nature for you to pick up an item that you discovered just to examine it and see it. But in hindsight and Monday morning quarterbacking, there are folks that are saying that he shouldn't have grabbed the dry bag. He should have left it there as part of the active scene. But would it have been protocol to pick it up with a stick or picking it up with another item?
So as any of your viewers can also say, yeah, in general, if you watched any show, any crime show, you know you don't want to like touch or mess with evidence. The explanation that Stephen Bertolino gave was that Chris Laundrie had zigzagged into the woods. Okay, I'm going to stop being super long-winded. He zigzagged into the woods. There was a reporter nearby. He didn't want to call out, for whatever reason, for law enforcement to come. So he picked it up because I guess maybe he was worried the reporter was going to pick it up. And then he went and he showed it to Roberta. She confirmed the items inside were belonging to Brian. But basically, the attorney's explanation is that he picked it up to protect it from the news person that was there.
And Stacey, I'll answer the first part of your question. As far as tide history, this is so far inland that the tide of the Gulf of Mexico, which is the nearest large body of water, of course, if you're looking at a map, you're looking at the Florida Peninsula, that tide information doesn't really have an impact on the Carlton Reserve. It's more the rain that comes down from above. And there was significant rain in September. It was 75% just water. That wasn't just because a tide came in from the Tampa side of Florida. That was all from above. That was all precipitation from above. And also, when grounds are previously saturated, when water comes in from clouds above, rain clouds that swoop across Florida, then all that rain accumulates over the saturated ground, and before you know it, you're in waist-deep water. And that's not out of the ordinary for a place like the Carlton Reserve, but again, it was waiting for those waters to recede for these items and these human remains to become visibly evident to those that were in the Carlton Reserve. Let's get to the next video question. It comes in from Gwen, and we'll try to go again. We're going to try to go as quickly through these as possible.
So hard.
Hey JB, it's Gwen from Louisiana. I was just kind of curious, now that Brian's been found deceased, has anyone or has his parents said anything about a handgun being missing? I was just kind of curious now that his remains have been found. We love you, Gabby. May you rest in peace.
Thank you, Gwen. And so the question is, do we know if there was a firearm involved at all, if there was a firearm in the possession of Brian Laundrie? Because let me explain where Gwen and other commenters have gone with this, is that if you have a firearm, you have the opportunity to do something harmful to yourself.
No indication from authorities that a firearm was on that scene. I do believe if they've recovered a firearm, they would tell us.
Let's get to the very next one. We're just going to continuously kind of pump them through here. And again, we had to vet a lot of these. And so if you sent in a video question, everyone, and you're asking, oh, here's the next one.
Hi, JB. This is PJ tuning in.
Oh,
I didn't.
Oh, it glitched out.
Okay.
Hold on. We'll play it back. I don't know why it glitched out, but we'll play it back here. It's from Australia. It's from PJ, so we'll get to that one in a second. But again, there's a process that if you don't see your video question, if you sent it and you don't see it, it's because either it just didn't make it onto our stream, or ask yourself, were there accusations, or was there anything that was that wasn't rooted in reality with the way that you formed your question or the way that you formed your observation? Or there was a lot of theories that were thrown my way last night that were just a little bit in left field. So you have to ask it in a way that, again, is rooted in reality. Okay, without further ado, PJ joining us from Australia.
Hi JB, this is PJ tuning in from YouTube in Australia. My question is, now that Brian Laundrie can't provide any answers for what happened, what might Joe Petito and Nicole Schmidt consider justice for Gabby at this point? Thanks for your coverage, it's been great.
Thanks to PJ, and I'll just start here by saying that I haven't had that conversation yet with Joe or Nicole. I look forward to just asking them about what they think for justice for Gabby. But I'll say this again, with the concept in mind that we can't stream forever, and we have to move on to other questions. That Joe and Nicole right now are so solely focused, or at least on the surface, what they are doing is so focused on the Gabby Petito Foundation that is their chief concern right now, that justice for Gabby is something that, and I would imagine that in their estimations is something that is very much in the hands of law enforcement. They're letting the process play out as far as the FBI conducting their investigation. They know that the justice for Gabby cause is ongoing, but they are very focused. I can speak for Joe and Nicole in that just in previous conversations with them that they are very focused on the foundation and trying to help prevent future tragedies. Mahsa, any comments there?
I would just say, you know, having spoken to so many other families of victims, you want to try to find a purpose, and now they do have a purpose to try to prevent domestic violence and help other missing persons. So I think they're definitely working on their purpose, like JB said.
This is an interesting question that comes in from Jody a moment ago on Facebook. We'll go over to Facebook, #AJB. How many times and who did the Petitos actually call Brian, both of his parents? So they called everyone that they could. Everyone. I know from talking to Joe that he called everyone that was in his phone. How many times? I don't know exactly how many times he called, but it was a lot. They were trying anything that they could to get a hold of the Laundries to find out what exactly had happened to their daughter. Gabrielle Venora Petito. Let's get to the next one, Mahsa, unless you have any comments here. No. You want to get to the next one?
Next one.
Okay, so the next one comes in, and the queue is loading of video questions and comments. We'll hit it here on the touch screen, and this one comes in from Tina. Hello to Tina, joining us on WFLA Now.
Hi, JB. This is Tina in Indiana. I'm just wondering if the items that they found were found together, where the water was, or were they found separate? And it seems suspicious that the parents were there the same day they found the items.
Tina's not alone, Mahsa, in believing that it was very suspicious that the parents go there, and that federal search teams that have been fanning out in these areas for weeks can't find the remains, can't find the items, the articles in question here. The cadaver dogs can't pick up on the odor, the scent. But again, it's human remains that were found near these articles, and the question was the proximity of how close everything was found together.
We know that Chris Laundrie found the white dry bag, and we know that law enforcement found the backpack and the human remains. So the backpack and the human remains were together in one area, and I believe that was off the trail. And also off the trail was the dry bag. We don't know the distance between. And I don't want to answer the other question because it's too long. The other part of her question about why now? I feel like I've explained it so many times.
Right, and we're going to move on to the next one here, and it comes in from Alex. Alex sending in, again, video questions submitted to the WFLA JB Facebook page that have then just been put through the vetting process, and this is the one from Alex.
Hello, JB. My name is Alex, and I watch your streams from Denver, Colorado. My question is, do you think that law enforcement will charge Brian Laundrie with the murder of Gabby Petito? Obviously, Brian Laundrie is gone now, so I'm wondering, would there be any benefit to charging Brian Laundrie with the murder of Gabby Petito if they have enough evidence?
Mahsa,
typically
we have a deceased person who is now at the center of an FBI criminal investigation, and the question is, if they determine or they have determined that Brian Laundrie is the responsible party for Gabby Petito's death directly, what happens legally from a federal investigation standpoint?
So great question. I'll take my best shot at it. I don't think it makes sense to bring charges when the suspect is deceased. You bring charges when you want, to have an outcome, for them to plead guilty, for them to go to prison, and the suspect is deceased at this point. Certainly the family does have some civil options of wrongful death and so on.
And we'll, of course, follow up on whether or not those civil options yeah.
One quick thing, and the attorney said, Stephen Berlino said he has, quote, no reason to believe Laundrie's parents will be charged with a crime. Go ahead.
We just have so many video questions that I know that there are so many with #AJB and #HeyMahsa, but there are so many people that took their time last night and even this morning waking up and shooting their video questions. So I want to get to as many of those as possible while we have Mahsa on stream, and Mahsa only being able to stay with us till 2:30. I'll try to stay a little bit beyond that myself if I can, and answer some of the remaining questions that are coming in with #AJB and #HeyMahsa. But let's just continue firing away from the video questions that were sent in to, again, the WFLA JB Facebook page. This next one comes in from Kelly.
Hey JB, I was just wondering if anybody's talked to Gabby's parents and made sure they're doing okay with everything that's came about the last couple of days. I know it's hard, and I just was wondering if anybody's checked up on them.
Very sincere comment. It's a very sincere comment. Just asking how the Petitos and how the Schmidts are doing, and of course the media reaches out endlessly, trying to get comment and get interview. And but when I talk to them, and I had back and forth conversations a bit with Joe and some back and forth conversations with Nicole. It's not me pressing them for an interview. Come on WFLA Now, talk to us. It's more just checking in, seeing how things are. I grew up 15 minutes from where Nicole is currently residing.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, and I grew up on Long Island. Hello, okay. East Meadow. I grew up on Long Island. So, and to our previous commenter, I spent a lot of time in upstate New York. I am most of my life has been spent in New York State. So I know this. I know. In fact, in talking with the family a good amount, we have some very odd, strange, random connections that folks in Nassau County, Suffolk County would know if I talked about here on stream. But we got to continue kind of keeping the ball rolling down the road. The family, again, one more time, the family is, and I appreciate Kelly's comment, the family is just completely honed in on the foundation right now and trying to do good. And that's not putting up that's not them putting up a facade and that being just what they constantly point to no, that they really do genuinely put a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of passion into the Gabby Petito Foundation, GabbyPetitoFoundation.org, and trying to help prevent future tragedies. Nicole is really grieving, and they're all grieving. They're all grieving. Joe is, I know from conversations with Joe, he is really trying. We talked about how he had a conversation with Governor DeSantis. He's trying to get things changed here in his home state of Florida. He's trying to get things changed. He's very much looking to help others, and that's a sentiment that is shared by the entire family. Mahsa, it speaks to you know, just how they're trying to move forward and cope.
Yet the only way that I could imagine they could cope is if they try to find some meaning, try to help other young girls.
We'll get to some other comments that are coming in here. Maybe we could take one from written comments with hashtag HJB or hashtag HeyMahsa. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, this is I've never seen this one asked before. It's very interesting. First and foremost, from Janet on YouTube, hashtag HJB, why would they open the park to the public again? Yeah, they have opened. I just got the push alert from WFLA. You should download the WFLA app and sign up for push alerts because you'll get the same information that I do, that the search sites have been reopened to the public. That's because they've concluded their work there. They brought in so many resources, Mahsa, thoroughly examined the scene, and they are done at the Carlton Reserve. They are done. And I'm sure that cameras now are finding that spot and combing through that spot and shooting video of that spot of where the remains were found, where the articles were found. But yeah, the Carlton Reserve, Myakkahatchee, these are areas that are open to the public. And why would they do it? Because they're done. They're done with their work there. Debbie, hashtag KJB. This is the one I was talking about I hadn't seen before. Was the car ever submerged in water? Talking about the Ford Mustang. Was the car ever submerged in water at any time when it was in the reservoir, or was it found prior to the rain? So I think she means the reserve there. It was parked on the road where there's it wasn't in the reserve. It was parked on a road near the reserve. So it was never submerged, as we understand it. Right, Mahsa?
Yeah. No, 13th, 14th, 15th is when the car was there.
We've got another 10 minutes, folks, with 8 on your side investigator Mahsa Saeidi.
God bless you. I don't know how you do this so long. This is difficult.
Yeah,
to be on for 2.5 hours.
We did 6 hours the other day, so yeah. This is yeah.
You know, I don't sit. I'm sitting, so I'm in pain. But go ahead.
You're sitting? Are you in pain?
A little bit, but that's fine. Go ahead. 10 more minutes.
Why are you in pain,
Remember,
Mahsa?
I don't want to talk about it online. Sorry.
Okay. I want to make sure you're okay. I don't want you to.
I'm okay. You know, I have my standing desk. I like to stand. But go ahead.
You do like to stand. You do like to stand. Mahsa, yes, has her standing desk, and very much you'll see her plugging away at news stories.
Sitting is the hardest part of this. Yeah.
I do get a little achy. I do.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Let's get to this next one. This next one comes in from Catherine.
Hey JB, this is Catherine Souter watching from McLean, Virginia. My question is, do you think the FBI will ever release what was in Brian Laundrie's backpack and notebook? Or do you think only if it pertains to the Gabby Petito murder investigation? My heart goes out to the Petito family. My brother was murdered when he was 19 on spring break in Miami, and please send them my love. Thank you.
Catherine, first and foremost, thank you for your courage there. That's to share that is that's very powerful, and to share a little bit about what has happened in your life. I'll say this. Wait, I was so taken away by Catherine. What was the beginning of Catherine's comment was, will the contents of the backpack, will the contents of the notebook ever be made public? And here's my, Mahsa, you being a former New York City prosecutor, you can best address this question, but my 2 cents on it are, or as I understand it rather, is that if they pertain to an ongoing federal investigation, if they pertain to the federal investigation directly, the contents would, in theory, could come out in time. But if it has nothing to do with Brian Laundrie's death, if the contents of the notebook or the backpack have nothing to do with Gabby or Brian's death, then they might just be personal effects, and they might never come to light. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate there. So while the investigation continues, obviously the feds are not going to release anything. If they end up, charging anyone with anything, then at some point we could have access if the contents of the backpack or the contents of the document end up being relevant. But outside of legal proceedings, so my best guess right now is it's possible that we'll never know.
We might never know.
Yeah.
The contents of okay, let's just go down the rabbit hole for a brief moment.
Okay.
If the contents of the notebook contain information to Brian's manner of death, if it is, in fact, if it is a suicide and there is a note in that notebook that indicates that it was, in fact, a suicide, would a suicide note ever come to light publicly? I've covered many cases that involve a suicide, and the notes themselves being released by government, I don't recollect many instances where the note itself, that is the last words and the final message of a human being before they are deceased. I don't have many recollections of a suicide case leading to post-mortem, leading to the release of those final words. Do you?
So, out in Wyoming, like I said, they just do the cause, the manner of death, and the positive ID. Here in Florida, many more documents and much more information is released. We have really good sunshine laws, they're called here. Regarding, and we know that he died here in Florida. Regarding what's in the final autopsy report, I've tried to get this answer as I was looking into the Gabby Petito case. I knew we were not getting the final autopsy report, and I asked, hey, what is in the final autopsy report? And I was told from experts that there is no set rule of what would be in an autopsy report, but let's say that this was, suicide, and let's say that they're basing that based on a note that was found near the body, something circumstantial, then it would be possible that would be referenced in the autopsy report that would be released here in Florida. And you're just reminding me, I have to check. Will we get, certainly we're not going to get it right now, but we should put in that request to Dr. Vega.
Excuse me. I would, you're not going to get a PDF of the contents of that notebook.
Maybe it would be an exhibit attached. Potentially, again, I think everyone does it a little bit differently. But it would be pertinent, like, especially if all you have is partial skeletal remains and you're trying to determine what happened, and you have to go outside of just what the bones show and to maybe a note that was left, a bottle of pills with a note. That would be information that would potentially be used to determine that this was a suicide, and then it could be information that would potentially be included in the autopsy report. That's my best answer right now.
If you hear loud noises, it's because, again, I'm sorry for laughing, but this is, you can't make this stuff up.
I walked through some water. I don't know what it was in it.
A pipe burst behind us. A pipe at WFLA burst. It could happen anywhere. It happened at WFLA.
Yeah.
And you're hearing some of the, I don't know how well this microphone here is picking it up, but right behind this wall is a massive scene with plumbers, and they're working on the pipes in the building. So I just want to give everyone an apology from us here at WFLA that we're streaming during 10 feet behind me. They're working on repairs right now. So if you hear loud noises, that is the reason, as we mentioned here at the top of the stream. Let's get to the next one here. We got 5 more minutes with 8 on your side. Investigator Mahsa Saeidi. This next one comes in from Ireland.
Hey JB, just watching from Ireland, and I just wanted to ask, are the items that were found yesterday and the human remains found yesterday in the same area as Brian Laundrie's father went a couple of weeks ago? It just seems so strange to me, and I suppose to everybody else, that they're 30 minutes into their search and that's what they find. They find his notebook. So I'm just wondering if that's the same area. Thanks very much.
Let's show you again the map. Let's load up the map, and Mahsa, I think that the big thing that people are forgetting is that, and not that June is, I'm not saying that June is, but just in large part, this area was underwater in September, and now the waters have receded so much that everything that was under the surface of the water has now become visible, or did become visible for search teams, including, yes, the man who found the first sign of his son, that being Brian Laundrie, was Chris Laundrie finding the dry bag after about 30 minutes of searching in the Carlton Reserve on Wednesday morning.
And we know this area had been previously searched, if memory serves me correct, on October 7th when Chris Laundrie went to this general area. The attorney, I believe, said that he did not look at the beginning of the trail. And we also know that, according to the attorney and officials, as JB said, it was submerged underwater, which would explain why they were unable to make these discoveries at that time.
Folks, there's so many comments on YouTube about Mahsa's expertise here, and about just Mahsa, the journalist that we have here. I'm gonna just let us know. So many kind comments, Mahsa, are coming in. I'm reading them. Yes. I know that Mahsa has this. Mahsa, you and I have talked off stream.
People were mean ones.
People who are, you're very cognizant of some of the people online.
Don't be so mean.
That can be mean. They're not all mean. And there's a lot of, like Guess Who on YouTube who just said she is a darling. A darling. There's a lot of kind. I just want you to, before you leave here,
thank you.
I want you to know that there is an overwhelming amount of positive comments on social media for you.
Well, look at that. I'm having a drink tonight.
It's Friday.
It is.
It's Friday.
I was going to have a drink anyway. Yeah.
Let's get to one more video comment before we have to say farewell, because Mahsa, folks, has a job to do as far as preparing her report.
And she wants to stand up.
Yeah.
Let me stand up.
Sorry, I know that you're just. We need to get a standing position.
We do
here at WFLA. That is next on our build for WFLA Now for our stream center. Cassandra's next, and she's asking about what is next.
Hey JB, this is Cassandra from Massachusetts. Before I get to my question, I just want to thank you and the entire team for providing excellent coverage on this case since day one. You guys have been so respectful. You've answered so many questions, and I can't even begin to tell you how much I've learned just by listening to the live stream every day. So thank you. My question for you and the team is, now that Brian's been found deceased, what happens next in the case? Is the FBI realistically going to give us more information and tell us like cause of death, time of death? Is that relevant now in this case? And just curious about the next steps and what happens next. Thank you.
This popped out of my ear. What'd she say?
Well, asking about things. Well, the manner of death for Brian Laundrie, is it procedural now? I think what we're saying is for Cassandra, is it procedural now for us to get information, just like we got information about Gabby Petito's death? Are we going to procedurally now find out information about Brian Laundrie's death and asking questions about when the time of death is estimated to be and what the manner of death is? And Mahsa, before we let you go, just to take Cassandra's question here and just kind of talk about the timeline now. When could the FBI, or when could it be announced? I guess, is it in the hands of the Sarasota County Medical Examiner? Would the Sarasota County Medical Examiner hold a similar press conference here in Florida as the Teton County coroner, Dr. Brent Blue, had in Wyoming? Are we going to have another press conference where they announce the results of the autopsy that is being performed on the remains of Brian Laundrie?
So I do believe we're going to know the cause of death. If they determine the cause of death, we'll know whatever their finding is as to cause of death, whatever their finding is as to manner of death. Again, here in Florida, I do anticipate we're going to have access to the final autopsy report. Regarding will he hold a press conference, I had been in touch with Dr. Vega yesterday. He answered my questions at first, and then he said, hey, by the way, I'm not answering any. He said something like, you're going to have to go through the feds from now on. But so it remains to be seen. He is an independent agency. The coroner is independent of the FBI, and if they choose to reveal that information, and if the remains are going to stay there at the Sarasota County, or if they're going to perhaps be transferred into, the FBI crime lab, or to another federal expert that's going to take a look at it. Federal facility is what I'm trying to say. So I just don't have those answers right now, but I presume that it is going to be the Sarasota County examiner. I presume that if he has a manner and cause of death, we're going to have access to it. We don't know if there will be a news conference, but hopefully there will be.
I think I speak for a lot of the social media commenters, because I'm seeing the comment sections light up across Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, those three in particular, and there's a lot of folks want more Mahsa.
Oh, wow.
More Mahsa.
Wow.
So can you explain how they can follow you on social media and how they can see this report that you're working on tonight on WFLA News Channel 8?
You can follow me on social media at Mahsa-WHO, MAHSAWHO. And you can, that's the same for Facebook, Instagram.
Can you explain that? I'm going to just interrupt you here for just, what, Mahsa who?
My dad came up with that.
Mahsa who?
15 years ago. Just my name is Mahsa, you see it, and then who, W-H-O. My name used to be like Saeidi Asqui, if we could just not go into it right now, but my name was Mahsa Saeidi Asqui.
We won't. I just want to make sure. I'm just wanted to make sure that you.
My dad came up with it, so.
Want to make sure you didn't work for the World Health Organization, because Mahsa who.
Oh, WHO, yeah, no. Hey, thank you. That's one.
I think you're qualified.
Yeah. Thank you. And you can watch my report tonight. Please tune in live to Channel 8 at 6 if you are in the Tampa Bay area. If you're not, we'll post it on social later. JB, I love you. Thank you. I'm going to go stand up and not sit down ever again until the next time I'm back. Thank you.
Mahsa.
Thank you, friends.
I'll just say that one of a kind. One of a kind. 8 on your side investigator, Mahsa, who is stretching. I wish I could show you the camera shot right now of Mahsa stretching. Yoga in your future?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's take a few more questions and comments before we have to wrap up here on stream. Again, an explanation. If there is a Sarasota County coroner press conference, a medical examiner's press conference of any kind, where they announce those results, believe it, folks, we are going to be live. Doesn't matter if it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, a month from now, a year from now. Not that it would be a year from now, but any single solitary time that there's developments in this story or any story that we cover here in the Tampa Bay area, it's not Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie now. It's WFLA now. And we do so many other streams that pertain to other stories. We've been very much honed in on this one because this is the one where we've been getting phone calls, messages, emails, direct messages, just people who want more coverage, and we're just trying to provide you with the answers that you are oh so desperately seeking. But we do cover more news in the Tampa Bay area that is, of course, outside of the Gabby Petito, Brian Laundrie realm. And you can find us on the WFLA Facebook page, WFLA YouTube, as well as WFLA.com. Really, that's the big one. WFLA.com. You see it there in the bottom right-hand portion of your screen, the WFLA app for push alerts as well, and all the articles that live there. So, yes, a plug, but a plug that could help you as far as finding our coverage if you've been following us for the last several weeks. Yeah, Lisa saying in the comment section, local news matters. Yeah, local news matters. Local journalism matters. That's what we are. And so people who have been calling on me to cover other missing person cases across the country, while I do have very much a voice in the conversation of the stories that we cover, we're here at WFLA. That is the Tampa Bay market. And so I know that there's been a lot of calls on me professionally to cover other missing person cases, and I will do my very best to share that out on social media, use this following that I have accrued to share out stories of other missing people. But will we have other news coverage at this magnitude and at this level of a missing person in Utah, or a missing person in Texas, or a missing person in Michigan? No. I mean, again, and the reason for that is because we're not network. We're not national. WFLA is Florida. We cover Florida. So we cover Tampa Bay and we cover Florida. So that is the reason why we are so honed into this story, is because you have found a local news station. And to our international audience, I'll just kind of give you a little bit of an explainer, because I think that people in large part in the United States understand this. However, they might get lost in translation elsewhere. There are 200 plus media markets in the country. If you look here, I'll bring up, it's the Nielsen list of markets, television markets, and that's how the structure, the map goes as far as the stories that we cover. So we predominantly cover the Tampa Bay area because we are the NBC affiliate in Tampa, Florida. And there's markets across the country. The number one media market in the country is New York. After that, it's Los Angeles is number two. Then Chicago, then Philadelphia, then Dallas, then San Francisco, Atlanta. And a reporter at a local news station, let's say the CBS affiliate in Atlanta, is going to cover Atlanta news. The Fox station in Philadelphia, the reporters there are going to cover stories that matter to folks in Philadelphia. So we're here in Tampa, and we are a local news station. And I am not national news. I am not network news. I don't cover news across the country. This is very much in our backyard, this story. We do reference stories that go on across the country. Even though we are in the local news arena, we still, of course, talk about stories that matter to our viewers, you, Floridians, and to those here in the Tampa Bay area specifically. But we are very much, yes, you have found a local news station covering to us a local news story, but it is a story that crosses over so many state lines, and talking about Wyoming and talking about Utah, and of course the family, Nicole Schmidt and the Gabby Petito's family being in New York on Long Island. So there's a lot of different markets that get involved with our coverage. We've been working, for example, with Pix 11 in New York. That's our sister station. So that's kind of a little brief explainer as to why we cover this story so heavily, so much, because it's a story that matters to our Tampa Bay and Florida audience. And we will, of course, be committed to local stories first here at WFLA News Channel 8, your NBC station here in Tampa, Florida. Let's get to some more video questions. We'll try to get to the final. I don't think we're going to be able to get through the entire queue. There's so many. There's an overwhelming amount. We'll try to do 3 more if we can. And that last one came in from Cassandra. That means that coming up next is Jennifer. Let's, you know what? I think that we're only going to have time for 2 more. Apologies. I think we're going to do 2 more video questions. And then we're also going to do some more hashtag HeyJB. Hashtag, well, no, you can use hashtag. We'll look for hashtag Hey Mahsa. She's here in spirit. She's right over there, closer to where the pipe burst, where she's working at her computer. And yes, she is standing now. But let's get to this next one here from Jennifer. Jennifer is up next.
Hey JB, Jennifer from Virginia. My question is, when does the protesting, the stalking, become harassment, the bullying? Are there any laws in place that can stop this towards this family and in this neighborhood? I think that we all wanted the answers to why they didn't answer Gabby's parents, but I feel like they have paid the ultimate price for their mistakes. So are there any laws to stop this in this neighborhood? Thank you.
There's a noise ordinance. And if they stay within the decibel level of the town noise ordinance, they're not really breaking any laws. You're on a public street. But the concept of bullying, the concept of harassment is worth having. Do you feel that the demonstrations outside of the Laundrie home need to stop? I think Stephen Bertolino in his comments have been calling on those demonstrations to stop. This is a family that is now in grieving. And let's not forget that. I think that so many individuals who are so honed in on Gabby, and yes, rightfully so, but we also have two grieving parents here. Now, I know that the optics here, as far as the parents and their refusal to take any calls or any questions from Nicole Schmidt, from Joe Petito, from Gabby's family, that really vilifies them in the court of public opinion. But they, right now, folks, they are grieving. They are grieving from the loss of their 23-year-old son. So I will tell you this. To answer the question from, I believe, and let me just make sure I have the name right. Going back to the queue here, it's Jennifer. To answer Jennifer's question, it's if they stay within the decibel level, yeah, it's legal for them to be there. And then it really comes down to whether or not you believe it is ethically right for there to be demonstrations and chanting into the house by demonstrators that you've seen on just the live feeds that we've presented you with from Northport, Florida. I understand that people have been clamoring for questions to be answered, but let's just I'll just say this. Let's please remember that this is still a mother and father who lost a son. You can have any opinion you want of the circumstances surrounding that fact, but let's not forget the fact itself, and the fact is that they are a grieving family. And I think that there's been different forms of demonstration. Let's talk about that too. All of the it's really just been a couple of characters who have been demonstrating in that way, as far as using bullhorns and chanting into the house. There have been other forms of demonstrating that have been going on. It doesn't need to be there in person physically. People have been putting up signs. They've been making makeshift memorials with flowers. The forms of demonstrating that you're talking about, you're only thinking about those who are being the loudest there on that street. Let's not forget that other forms of demonstrating are going on, like this one here on your screen. This was a form of demonstration. The Justice for Gabby TikTok Time's Up banner plane, one of several banner planes that flew over the home. There are other means of expression where we aren't chanting into a house and audibly giving this reminder to the Laundrie family that there's a massive demonstration and a media circus outside of their front home. So ethically, let's keep that in mind, and keep the fact in mind, in that this is two parents, a mother and father, that are grieving, that haven't been charged with a crime. They might be guilty to you in the court of public opinion, but they are not guilty of any crime, and they haven't even been accused of one by the FBI. So let's please keep that in mind as far as the demonstrations that are going on. Jennifer, I really appreciate it, because there needs to be some civility and understanding and empathy, or sympathy, I should say, rather. And there needs to be some just us brought back to the fact that this is a mother and father who have lost a child. And the knowledge that they haven't been charged with a crime, not even mentioned as far as being charged with a crime yet. So let's please, yes, to Catherine in the comment section on YouTube, we are human. Let us be humane. Let's just all try to keep those facts in mind if we can. I think that hopefully we can all get behind that a little bit. But I understand that the optics of what I just said are contrary to me saying that everyone, you know, I went on my little spiel earlier about how everyone has the right to freedom of expression and freedom of speech, and you have your right to execute that freedom of speech, and that, but doing so with some civility, I think is the moral conversation that needs to be had right now, and hopefully we're doing so and having that conversation here with you. And I see some other comments here. Let me remind you, folks, that if you are 100% convinced that Brian is responsible for Gabby's death, there is no guarantee that they knew. There is no guarantee that there are scenarios, plausible scenarios, where Chris and Roberta Laundrie had no idea if, in fact, Brian did do something sinister to Gabby Petito. There is a scenario where they don't know anything and that they are in the dark. And let's all just kind of keep that within the realm of possible. That is within the realm of possible. All right. Take one. I promised one more video question, then we have to get going. This is going to be the last question that we take. And I'm sorry to so many other video questions. You can, again, submit your video questions to the WFLA JB Facebook page in a direct message, and we'll try to get to them on the next stream, provided that, of course, that will be, I mean, I don't know when the next stream is going to be. We stream based on developments, and we also try to stream just to have a conversation with our audience here and be part of the interactive journalism that we reference so heavily here in WFLA Now. Let's take this last one here, this last one from Jesse, out of, again, from the WFLA JB Facebook page.
Hey, JB. Just a quick thought theory. Maybe when Brian got home on the 1st, he told his parents a totally different story than what happened. Possibly he told them that Gabby wanted to stay, and she doesn't like driving the van, so it would be possibly believable that he came home, maybe they had broken up, and she wanted to stay with new friends she met. Never know. But my thought is that if he told his parents, don't you think they would have wanted to hide the van instead of leaving it in plain sight in their driveway? So maybe they didn't know initially, but they definitely should have talked to Gabby's parents, because that makes them look suspicious. But just a thought. What do y'all think?
That was a coincidence. I didn't bring up that question or comment. That was just the next one in the queue. I just see a name, and we put it up on screen. So it's very interesting that Jesse there talking about the other plausible scenarios here where Chris and Roberta Laundrie aren't fully aware of the circumstances of Gabby Petito's death. And yeah, talking about the van, Jesse makes some really good points here, some excellent points. And it's a good way for us to end here by reminding our audience and reminding all of you that we don't know, with Brian Laundrie being deceased, all of the attention now turns to the item, the notebook, yes. But really, the attention, I've seen it across the last 24 hours on social media, the attention is really honed in on Chris and Roberta Laundrie and what they knew and whether or not, because as far as the balance of this story, there's so many people out there that all that they want is charges to be filed against someone. Will someone have charges filed against them? That they just want, there's that clamoring for immediate satisfaction in charges being filed against someone with the last name Laundrie. We understand. Well, I see it. We understand it. But Chris and Roberta Laundrie, we don't know what they knew. Yes, the optics looks, I've said this a million times, and I'll say it 1 million, and then for the million and first time, the optics are so poor that they didn't take those phone calls from Joe Petito, from Gabby Petito, and Gabby Petito's father, and Gabby Petito's mother, Nicole Schmidt. The optics are so terrible. But we don't know what they knew. We don't know the circumstances surrounding exactly who is responsible for Gabby's death. There's just so much unknown, and we can only hope that the FBI will release more information in the days ahead, weeks ahead, and give us more insight as to what happened when Brian Laundrie returned home from Florida. We need more insight, of course, on what happened to Gabby. But that's obvious. So I'm stating a little bit of the non-obvious here. The obvious is we need to know who killed Gabby. We need to know if it was Brian or if it was somebody else. We then need to know from the FBI, based on the evidence that they have obtained, how Brian died. Yes, we have to know the manner of death, whether it was suicide or whether it was a natural cause, or if something happened to him at the reserve. We need to know the time frame in which Brian died. But then we need to know more about his actions when he returned home from Florida, or returned home to Florida from Wyoming, September 1st. Again, why not take those phone calls? Why not talk to Gabby Petito's family? Why go camping in Fort DeSoto? Why do that? So, oh, that's right. We do have, yes, that is very true. I have to get going here on stream. There are other streaming responsibilities that we have here on WFLA Now. So staying rooted in reality, that's our promise to you. Having a conversation with you as well is also our promise to you. Why do we feature your comments? Why do we bring up videos on screen asking those questions? Why do we feature hashtag HeyJB and hashtag HeyMahsa questions and comments? Why do we do that? We're a news agency. How many news stations across the country do you see doing this? The reason that we do is because this is very much something that I'm very passionate about. I care what you have to say. And I think that the questions that some very smart observers and very smart viewers around the world are asking here help us carry the conversation forward. Interactive journalism, this is what this looks like. So we are very much going to continue to spotlight exactly what you have to say in this story and every other that we cover. If you see in the bottom right-hand portion of the screen, you see WFLA Now, what that logo should mean to you is that we care what you have to say in the comment section. We're not ignoring our comments. There are news organizations that do that will just get 3,000 comments in response to a story, and then they just, it's on the next story. No, we're reading your comments. We are paying attention to what you have to say. We're paying attention to the questions that you want answered, and that's the interactive part of it as far as the journalism aspect, is that you ask questions, and then we are better informed as journalists to be able to ask the right questions on behalf of you, the people watching at home. Yes, we have a responsibility ourselves and the experience that we have as journalists to know the right questions to ask, but when we are able to pool our resources together and know what our viewers are saying in real time, it is better. We're more informed on how we can best do our jobs to be the best news station that we can be for you. And that is our commitment to you here at WFLA Now. I really appreciate everybody joining us. More streams as they happen, of course, with developments on this story and others. But I want to remind you folks that you go to WFLA.com, you'll find everything from our hardworking team here. I think we're working on getting a camera shot together where we can show you our hardworking team. I wish you could see what I see right now, like right here. It's our extremely hardworking WFLA News Channel 8 team, your NBC station in Florida, and the WFLA.com team. Big shout outs to just the people that have been writing these articles that you've been reading. It's Heather, it's Alexis, it's Nathaniel, it's Dylan, it's Athena, it's Robert. It's so many on our hardworking team. Our reporters you see on air also writing these stories: Mahsa Saeidi, Walt Buteau, Justin Sheckard, all of them. So that is just a little bit of an explanation as to why we stream for hours on end and why we talk to you by having a conversation through the comments that you ask in our social media comment section. The next stream on this story will be when developments occur in this story, or when, of course, if you want more streaming, here's the best way to do it. If you're looking for more streaming coverage, we look at feedback on the WFLA Facebook page in the reviews section. I know that sounds crazy, but it's actually the truth as far as how I've asked our management team at WFLA for those wanting to give feedback on the job that we do at WFLA Now, whether it's good, bad, ugly, if you can't stand me, if you love me, it doesn't matter. Just the good, the bad, the ugly of what you think of our streaming product. Go to the WFLA Facebook page and leave a detailed feedback-based comment on what you think of the job that we're doing. We take that to heart, and that's the best way, because that lives on social media and will stay on the reviews page, the front page of the reviews page of the WFLA Facebook page. So that's for those wanting more streaming coverage, or if you want less streaming coverage, the good, the bad, the ugly of the job that we're doing. Go over to the WFLA Facebook page and leave us a review, and we will look for what you have to say as far as the feedback to the job that we are doing. So that's how you can get more streaming coverage. We are back live for any new development. If something happens in an hour from now, we're back live on WFLA Now. But right now, we're going to sign off for now, take a brief break. And for our entire team, they're working on the reports tonight for WFLA News Channel 8, your NBC station that begins with the 4 o'clock news in about an hour and 7 minutes from now. 5 o'clock news, 6 o'clock news, 7 o'clock news, 8 o'clock news. A lot of news that we churn out for our NBC audience, WFLA News Channel 8's audience on the television component, of course, of our station. And you can find that by clicking on your television and watching WFLA News Channel 8, your NBC station tonight. That's of course for folks in the Tampa Bay area. But if you're joining us from elsewhere in the United States, you can watch our newscast on WFLA.com, the WFLA app as well. And then also our international audience, they only have access to WFLA Now, as we understand it, here on our various social media platforms. Folks, I'll be checking to some of the comments of what you have to say across those platforms. I'll be checking out here in the hours ahead what you're saying on my WFLA JB, what you're saying on Facebook, Twitter, my WFLA JB Instagram account, Discord, hello Discord, Reddit, TikTok, all the various other platforms as well. YouTube, hello to YouTube. I'll be paying attention to what you guys have to say as we wrap up quite an eventful week here, the Monday through Friday business week at least, on here in the Tampa Bay area. Very curious to what you're saying as far as these developments that have occurred over the last 72 hours. In the meantime, the very latest for you is on WFLA.com and the WFLA app. That's where we have the latest on Gabby Petito, the latest on Brian Laundrie. Our article hub lives here, and all of our push notifications stem from the WFLA app. So download the WFLA app if you would like push alerts on this story and other stories pertaining to our audience here in Tampa Bay and here across Florida. And, of course, our article hub by our award-winning team here at WFLA News Channel 8 is on WFLA.com. There's a hyperlink there that you can click on, and it'll take you over to all of the recent stories. And I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the stories that we have for you right now on WFLA.com that really are just a totally fascinating read. We have an article on WFLA.com. Brian Laundrie's remains found. What's next? What's next for Brian Laundrie's parents? The Brian Laundrie search sites being reopened to the public after remains were found and identified there at the Carlton Reserve. We have an interactive timeline. All of it there for you from our award-winning team here at WFLA on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. I'll be heading over to my various social media accounts to see what you guys have to say, but appreciate everybody filing in with their hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyMahsa comments here live on WFLA Now.